Hey everyone, I'm Kendrick Diaz, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. Pretty much everyone has had the privilege of being invited to an event before, whether it be a wedding, or a conference, or a meeting, or a graduation. But nothing we've ever been invited to holds a candle to God's invitation to us. God has invited us to a wedding, our own wedding to Jesus Christ. When Jesus gave the parable in Matthew 22 about a king who arranges a marriage for his son, understand that wasn't purely symbolic. There's a literal marriage that is going to take place between Jesus Christ and the church. Now, the verse we're covering in today's episode gives us a snapshot of that spectacular event. Let's read it in Revelation chapter 19. I'll start in verse 6. John says, "And I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, as the sound of many waters and as the sound of mighty thundering, saying, Alleluia, for the Lord God omnipotent reigns. Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready. And to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints." This verse is a description of the long-anticipated marriage of Christ to his church. Thousands of years in the making, by the way, but it finally happens at this time. Righteous Abel will be there, Noah, the patriarchs, Moses, David, the apostles, all of Jesus' true disciples down through time. How about you? Well, that depends on whether you're part of the church who accepts the invitation and makes herself ready. Now, we do have a booklet that we offer completely free of charge that discusses the true church of God at length. The link will be in the show notes for you to download later. Back to the marriage supper of the Lamb. What John saw was a vision of the final phase of a process that began 2,000 years ago. To better understand the significance of that event, let's note a few things about weddings in the first century. During the Apostles' day, a standard wedding followed this basic sequence. First, the families of the bride and groom negotiated on a contract discussing the terms of the marriage. Once an agreement was reached, the groom paid a dowry to the bride's family, and so began the betrothal period. The betrothal period would be like our modern-day engagement, except much more serious. It was as binding as a marriage itself. During the betrothal period, the bride and groom remained separated, living in their respective homes, but the groom had an important job to do. He had to prepare a place for his bride, which in many cases was an additional room to his father's house. Then finally, after about a year, the marriage feast and ceremony would take place, and the marital covenant would be complete. The remarkable thing about this process is that it basically parallels Jesus Christ and his church. The new covenant is the marriage contract. The price he paid to claim us for himself was his blood. And during this betrothal period, Jesus himself is preparing a place for us. You might remember how he told the disciples before he died, "In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you." That's in John chapter 14 and verse 2. So this is where we are in that sequence of events. The marriage supper of the Lamb hasn't taken place yet, but Jesus Christ will return to complete that marital covenant with his church. This is without question one of the most stunning prophecies in Revelation. There's nothing else like it. What is this wedding going to look like? How will everything unfold? What will it be like to finally see Jesus as he is and partake of the marriage supper of the Lamb? We'll have to be there to find out.
Verse by Verse is a companion podcast to the Daily Bible Verse blog, which you can find on the Life, Hope, and Truth Learning Center. Check out the show notes for more.